The land didn't scream when it saw blood. It just drank it in and stayed silent, like it had seen worse. That morning, the widower rode alone through the ash-colored dawn, unaware that half-buried beneath a ruined wagon lay a woman whose name could buy a county, or burn it to the ground. He didn't know her yet, but by the time the sun set, they'd both be holding a gun, and neither would ever be the same again. The sun bled low over the frontier, casting long shadows across the broken earth. Dry grass bowed in the heat, whispering to itself as a tired wind dragged its feet across the land. A lone rider moved through the hush, his outline framed by dust and dusk. He rode not like a man heading anywhere, but like one trying to outpace ghosts that trailed close behind. The horse beneath him was gray with age and road wear, ribs barely concealed by a sun-scorched coat. The man in the saddle, grizzled, hollow-eyed, wore no badge, no pride. His duster flapped like torn prayer flags. In the rifle scabbard, the weapon was old but polished. Beside the saddlebag, a small cross tied with string bounced softly, tapping against the leather like a memory that wouldn't die. He was a widower, not the kind folks pitied, the kind they avoided. Too much silence in him, too many rumors. They said his wife and daughter died in the winter storm of '73. No doctor could reach them. By the time the snow let up, the land had buried them both. Some claimed he buried himself beside them and just hadn't lain down yet. The ranch, what was left of it, sat low in the valley, fenced by splintered posts and the stubborn roots of old dreams. 2 cows, both mean and half-starved, and a dog with one ear gone. That was all he called his own now. He spoke little, prayed even less. The land didn't answer prayers. It was on a ride north of a creek that he found the wagon. First, there was the smell. Iron rot and something sweeter, like old peaches gone bad. Then, the silence. No birds. No wind. The trees near the draw bent inward, like mourners. He crested the ridge and saw it. The remains of a family's journey torn to shreds. One wagon, wheels splintered and frame charred on one side. 2 oxen lay bloated and buzzing in the tall grass. Bodies, at least 5, strewn across the trail like scattered seed. A woman's dress torn to ribbons. A boy's hand sticking from under canvas. He dismounted slow, rifle drawn, boots cracking dried mud like bones. His dog whimpered once, low in its throat, then backed away behind the horse. He moved from corpse to corpse, checking for breath he knew he wouldn't find. One had been scalped. Another had a bullet clean through the eye. Whoever did this had known what they were doing, and had taken their time. That's when he heard it. A whisper, faint as wind through dry leaves. He spun, gun raised, but it wasn't a threat. It was a voice, a breath. He dropped to his knees near the wagon wreckage and pulled aside a broken beam. Beneath it, pinned and half covered in dust, lay a woman. Her face was smeared with dried blood. Her dress was torn, fine silk under the dirt. Not prairie clothes, no something eastern. Her boots were soft leather, stitched by hand. Too clean for this place. Her eyes fluttered open as he touched her wrist. Green, sharp as a blade even through the pain. She tried to speak, only coughed. "You're all right," he said, though it was half a lie. "You're not dead. That's something." She tried to sit up. He stopped her with a firm hand. "Don't move. Might be bones broke." Her hand closed around his wrist. Thin fingers, bruised knuckles. But strength there, too. He looked down at her for a moment longer than he meant to. Then stood, glanced around the ridge again, and listened. Nothing. Whoever had done this was gone. But the trail would bring scavengers. And soon. "I can't leave you here," he muttered. It was unclear if he was talking to her or to himself. He tied her carefully behind his saddle, double-checked her grip, then mounted. She leaned into his back, barely conscious. Her breath was warm against his shoulder. The dog followed, head low, tail tucked. They rode beneath a sky that had turned purple-blue. No stars yet, just a kind of light that made shadows play tricks and reminded a man of things he wanted to forget. He reached the ranch after dark, helped her down like glassware, careful not to jar her injuries. She didn't speak, just looked around the yard like it was a foreign country. Inside, he laid her on the cot in the corner where his daughter used to sleep. He lit the oil lamp low. The fire in the hearth was dead, but he rekindled it slow, with kindling and habit. She slept for hours. He watched her from across the room, turning the harmonica over in his hand, but never playing it. Once, she moaned, something like a name or a prayer. He poured water, dampened cloth, wiped her forehead. In the firelight, her face looked younger than he'd guessed. Maybe 25. Maybe less. He noticed a necklace around her throat, delicate, silver engraved. Not the kind worn by homesteaders. The chain was snapped, as if someone tried to rip it off. When she finally stirred again, she stared at the rafters before turning her eyes to him. "You saved me." He didn't answer right away. He was mending a leather strap by the window, hands methodical. "No one else out there," he said. "Didn't have much choice." She studied him a long while. Then, "You got a name?" He paused, eyes narrowing. "Most folks don't ask." "I ain't most." He met her gaze. She didn't flinch. He respected that. "Call me what you want. Just don't scream when you do it." A weak smile touched her cracked lips. "Fair enough." She asked no more questions. Neither did he. The fire crackled. The wind outside picked up, humming low through the gaps in the boards. The dog lay curled near her feet. Later, as he watched her sleep, he told himself it was mercy that made him bring her home. But in his gut, he knew it was something else. Something older, hungrier. Something he'd thought long buried, beside his wife and child under the cottonwood. And now, something had stirred. Morning came soft and gray, crawling through the cracks in the shutters, and resting pale on the woman's face. She hadn't moved all night, but when the light found her, her eyes opened slow, green, and shadowed, scanning the room like it might vanish if she blinked too fast. He was already awake, sitting in the corner with a half-carved length of mesquite in his lap and a knife that looked older than most towns. His hat hung from a hook. A pot of beans simmered low on the stove, the scent mixing with wood smoke and dust. The dog sat at the door, ears twitching, watching both of them. She tried to sit up, flinched, and lay back again. Her voice came raw. "Where am I?" "My land," he said. "Near Dry Creek. 20 miles from the wagon trail." "You don't remember what happened?" "I remember fire." She winced. "And screaming." "Then, nothing." He nodded. "You were lucky. If luck still counts for anything." Her hand moved toward her neck, finding the broken necklace. She frowned, fingers brushing the torn chain. "Did you?" "No. Found you like that." She didn't respond, but her shoulders settled slightly. He noticed. "You hungry?" She looked toward the stove. "I could eat." He brought her a tin plate, beans, rough bread, nothing more. She sat up slow, each motion guarded like she expected to fall apart. He didn't help. Just watched to see if she could. She did. Between bites she asked, "What do I call you?" He leaned back, arms folded. "No one's called me much of anything in a while. But most folks knew me as Sam." She nodded, chewing. "I'm not ready to give mine." He didn't press. "That's fine." They sat in silence after that, the kind of silence that belongs to people who've both buried something they loved. Outside, the wind picked up, pushing dry leaves across the yard in spirals. The fence creaked in rhythm with the land's long breath. Later, when the sun was higher and her strength returned enough to sit upright without wincing, she stepped outside. He followed her with his eyes through the window as she stood on the porch, one hand resting on the rail like a woman trying to believe in solid things. His ranch was no paradise, just broken earth and stubborn wire, a single barn that leaned south like it had given up. But she looked at it as if measuring the shape of her new prison. "You live here alone?" she asked when he joined her. He nodded. "Just me and the dog. No wife." "Had one." She said nothing for a time. "Children." He looked out at the horizon. "One. A girl. Died young." The wind tugged at her dress. She didn't ask more. He noticed how she moved, carefully but not weak. Someone who'd learned to hide pain early. Her hands, though bruised, held the porch rail with poise. Eastern education, probably. Raised to sip from porcelain, not drink from tin. "You weren't raised out here," he said. No. Where then? Far enough east the ocean smelled like rust some days. Big houses. Big lies. He caught something in her tone. Bitterness polished to elegance. Family looking for you? She met his eyes. Would it matter if they were? No, he said. Just means trouble find you faster. That night, she helped wash the dishes. He gave her a pair of old boots his wife had worn, too big, but better than silk slippers. She accepted them with a nod, then sat by the fire and stitched the torn hem of her dress. Her fingers moved with the ease of someone who'd mended finer things. He watched her from the corner. She didn't belong out here, not really. The way she carried herself, it was all borrowed calm, like a bird pretending to be still before bolts. Why'd you run? He asked finally. She didn't look up. Who said I ran? You weren't in that wagon for no joyride. And fine lace doesn't belong on dirt roads. She paused in her stitching. I was going west. Away from a life that cost too much. You always talk like that. She gave a ghost of a smile. Only when I'm scared. He almost smiled back. But old bones don't bend easy, and he hadn't laughed in years. That night, he lay awake listening to the wind, the creak of the rafters, and her breathing from the other side of the room. Not watching, just listening. It had been a long time since the house felt like more than a tomb. At dawn, he found her feeding the chickens. She startled when he stepped outside, then smirked at his expression. I can work, she said. I'm not useless. He didn't argue, just handed her a tin pail and pointed toward the well. Her hands trembled a bit with the pump, but she got the water up. He began to wonder if she'd stay. That afternoon, he rode out to check the fence line, left her with the dog and his rifle propped by the door. When he came back, she was sweeping the porch with an old willow broom, lips pressed in concentration. There was a quiet grace to her even now, one not taught, only inherited. That night, she asked about the harmonica sitting dusty on the shelf. Used to play, he said. For your daughter? He nodded. She said, play again. He stared at the thing, picked it up, held it a while, thumb running over the brass. Then, without ceremony, played something soft. It wasn't a song, just a sound that filled the space between two broken people. She didn't cry, but she closed her eyes. Afterward, she whispered, thank you. The next morning, he went to chop wood, found tracks near the edge of the property. Not his, not hers. Fresh, pressed into the soft loam from the last night's dew. He followed them a ways, careful, quiet, then came back. She saw his face when he walked in. What is it? He didn't answer. Just checked the rifle. Loaded it slow. You said nobody'd come looking, he said. She paled. I never said that. Her voice barely carried over the crackle of the fire. He looked at her, then the tracks, then back again. You best start telling me the truth, he said, before truth finds us first. The wind had a different tone that morning, colder, sharp at the edges. The kind that carried bad news across open land. Sam stood at the edge of his property, staring down at the boot prints again. They let in, not out. Someone had been watching the house. Close enough to see her face. Close enough to know she was alive. She stood in the doorway, behind him, shawl wrapped tight around her shoulders. No pretense now. No morning pleasantries. Just a quiet tension pulling between them like a stretched wire. You recognize the tracks? He asked without turning. Her silence answered before her words did. Yes, she said at last. He looked back at her. She didn't flinch, but something in her jaw tightened. I need the whole truth, he said, not dressed-up fragments. She stepped off the porch, her boots crunching frost-bitten grass. The shawl fluttered in the wind like a flag that didn't belong to any army. My name is of no use to you, she said. But the men who came after that wagon weren't outlaws. They were hired. Sam watched her face, not her words. By who? My father. Or the men around him. Doesn't matter. They wanted me returned. Or erased. He didn't ask why. Just waited. She drew a slow breath. He controls rail, iron, timber. Enough land deeds to bury this state. He offered me to a man twice my age, a broker with a bloody past. Marriage was the price for consolidating two empires. I ran, took only what I could carry. Those who helped me were murdered. Sam looked out across the hills. And now your ghosts led the wolves to my door. I never meant. You brought fire with you. Just didn't want to admit it. She stepped closer. You saved me knowing I was trouble. I saved a dying woman. Didn't know I was pulling a fuse out of a lit stick of dynamite. Their eyes met, hers defiant, his tired. But underneath the words, something else pulsed, a fragile, growing understanding that neither was whole, but both were willing to bleed for the right reason. He turned away. We'll deal with it. How? Same as any other storm. Bar the doors. Load the guns. Hope the walls hold. By dusk, the first rider showed. Not up the road, but from the ridge behind the barn. Sam spotted him through the cracked window while cleaning the shotgun. A man in a dark duster, rifle slung careless across his back, wide hat pulled low. He didn't approach the house, just watched, then vanished behind the trees. Sam closed the shutters, locked the doors, gave her the revolver, and didn't say anything when he noticed how naturally she held it. You ever shot one of these before? He asked. She looked him straight on. Not in practice. He didn't doubt her. That night, she didn't sleep. Neither did he. They took turns by the window, oil lamp low, listening to every creak in the boards and every distant hoofbeat that might have been wind. Just before dawn, a noise stirred the dog, low growl, steady. Sam stood, rifle ready. He moved to the door, opened it slow. A bundle had been left near the steps, wrapped in burlap. A warning. He unfolded it. Inside, the blacksmith's horseshoe. Still warm. Bent. She recognized it instantly. They've been to town, she whispered. They're close. They want you scared, Sam said. They don't know how stubborn I am. He saddled his horse after breakfast. Told her he was going to town, see what Cord Fallon was doing, and whether the sheriff still had a spine. You think I should stay here? She asked. You leave this land, you're a ghost again. Easy to vanish. Here, I can see the line they'll have to cross. She looked at him for a long beat. You're risking your life. He stepped into the saddle. Not much of it left to risk. He found the town gripped in a different kind of silence. Curtains pulled tight. Children kept indoors. A carriage too fine for these parts sat outside the saloon. Sam entered slow. Cord Fallon sat at the bar, sipping from a glass of imported rye. His boots rested on a local newspaper. 3 men flanked him. One with a scar down his neck like lightning had kissed him. All wore polished guns. None looked like they'd missed a meal or a kill. Sam, Cord said, smiling like a man greeting an old poker rival. I heard you turned hermit. Sam didn't sit. I heard you turned parasite. Cord chuckled. Still sharp. I admire that. Even more that you've taken in a certain stray I've been chasing. Don't know what you're talking about. Cord raised a brow. Don't lie, Sam. You were always a better shot than a bluffer. Sam looked at the bartender. Eyes down. Afraid. Everyone in this town was. Cord leaned in. You know what she is. That girl carries more gold in her bloodline than you'll ever earn branding cows. And she's dangerous. To everyone. She's a survivor, Sam said, voice low. She's a baroness, Cord hissed. And she's cost me 24 men. Sam said nothing. Just turned to leave. Cord's voice followed him out. You shelter her. You burn with her. Sam paused on the step. Then I'd better start stacking wood. By the time he rode back, the sun was low, and the clouds had rolled in like bruises on the horizon. Rain hadn't touched this land in weeks. But now thunder growled. She was waiting on the porch, rifle in her lap. He told her everything. She didn't cry. Didn't scream. Just nodded, jaw set. We can't outrun this, can we? She asked. No, he said. We hold. She stood. Then teach me to aim better. They spent the next hour loading weapons, nailing shutters, reinforcing doors. She moved with purpose. Every nail she drove, every bullet she handled, stripped another layer of the life she'd fled. No more lace. No more silence. Night fell like a curtain dipped in ink. In the distance, wolves howled, or maybe it was men. She sat beside him near the fire, cleaning the revolver. Her hands were steady now. "I never thank you," she said. "Don't." "Why?" "Because it's not over yet." Dawn broke, blood orange and thick with mist, the kind of morning that felt like the land itself was holding its breath. Sam stood on the porch with his rifle across his chest, eyes fixed on the distant ridge. She stood beside him, revolver tucked at her hip, shoulders squared against the coming storm. Their breaths hung in the cold air like warnings, but neither spoke. There was nothing left to say. A dust cloud rose on the horizon. Riders. 6, maybe 7. Dark shapes against the pale sky. Cord Fallon rode at the front, coat flapping like a vulture's wings. Behind him, hired men with loaded saddlebags and dead eyes. They weren't coming to parley. They were coming to end this. Sam stepped off the porch. The dog barked once, then fell silent. He led the woman to the barn and opened the back door. "If they break the house, come here. You've got the lanterns, right?" She nodded. "We go if we have to." "We don't run," he said. "No," she agreed. "We burn what we must." They took their positions, Sam in the loft above the porch, where he'd laid sandbags and cut narrow kill slits through the walls. She remained on the ground floor, rifle propped on the windowsill, heart steady despite the thunder building in her chest. The riders didn't call out. They just came, silent, efficient, like men who had done this before and expected it to be quick. But as the lead horse reached the fence line, Sam fired once. The shot echoed like a hammer to the spine of the land. The lead rider tumbled from his saddle, dead before he hit the dirt. The others scattered, rifles raised. Bullets slapped the walls, shattered windows. She ducked, returned fire, eyes scanning for movement beyond the dust. She wasn't graceful, but she was brave. And her aim, it turned out, was just good enough. A man tried circling wide through the tall grass. Sam caught his silhouette and dropped him with a shot through the gut. The scream cut through the morning and then vanished. Another tried to rush the front door. He never reached it. She met him with a slug to the chest and watched him fall in a heap of surprise. The firefight lasted less than 5 minutes, but felt like years. Smoke curled from the porch, window panes blown to splinters, blood soaking into dry soil. Cord didn't fall with the others. He came last, slow and unshaken, riding through the carnage like a man stepping across puddles. He dismounted 10 feet from the door, one hand raised, the other resting on the butt of his pistol. "Enough," he said, voice hoarse but steady. "No need to bleed more for a woman who ain't yours." Sam stepped out from cover. "You bled men who weren't yours either." Cord smirked. "They were paid. Like me." The woman stepped beside Sam, rifle still warm in her hands. "I'm not going back." Cord looked at her with something close to pity. "You think this ends here? You think you can bury the world with a few bullets and a tin shack?" "No," she said. "But I can bury you." Cord laughed, slow and cruel. "You forget who I am. I remember what you did. I remember the children on that wagon." Cord's expression shifted. His eyes, finally, turned cold. "Fine," he said. "Then we finish it." His hand twitched toward his gun. Sam fired first. Cord stumbled back, a dark stain blooming through his chest. He felt at his knees, choking on disbelief more than blood. The woman stepped forward, raised her rifle, and fired once more into his heart. No hesitation, no regret. He slumped sideways into the dirt. Just a man now. No empire. No name worth fearing. Silence followed, thick and still. Only the wind moved, sweeping dust over the bodies, reclaiming what had once been stolen. Sam sat on the steps, the rifle across his knees. Blood dripped from a graze on his arm, but he didn't flinch. She knelt beside him, checked his wound with hands now practiced and calm. "It's clean," she said. "You'll live." "Damn shame," he muttered, but there was the trace of a smile beneath the weariness. Later, they buried the dead in a shallow trench behind the barn. No markers, no prayers, just a handful of dirt and the knowledge that those men had chosen the wrong side of a line drawn in dust and grief. Rain came that evening, slow, steady, the kind that cleans, not drowns. The air smelled of ash and rebirth. They sat on the porch, bruised and quiet, watching water fill the cracks in the ground. "I thought I'd feel different," she said. "You are different," he replied. "I mean free. Freedom don't feel like fireworks. Feels like quiet. Feels like no one knocking on your door come midnight." She nodded, pulling the shawl tighter around her. Her voice was softer now. "I could leave. Go east again. Disappear. You could. But I won't." He turned to her. She met his gaze without flinching. "I've got debts here," she said. "To this land. To you." He looked out across the field. The graves. The barn still standing. The porch lights flickering in the breeze. "Then stay," he said. And she did. Weeks passed. The porch was rebuilt, the barn patched. She planted herbs near the well. He taught her how to read the land, when the cows were sick, when a storm was coming by the shape of the clouds. She taught him how to mend shirts and write letters that didn't just say, "I'm fine." One evening, he found the necklace again, still broken, but cleaned, its silver bright. She'd placed it on the mantel beside his daughter's harmonica. He didn't ask why. That night, as the harmonica played its soft, uncertain tune and rain tapped on the roof, the dog curled at their feet. In that room, there were no lords or baronesses, just two people who'd stopped running, two souls building something with the pieces left behind. And outside, the wind remembered their names, but it whispered them gently now.